Hey, welcome to Tuesday Trash Talk at 10. My name is Cheryl Baldwin, and I'm with the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, as well as I run the What's In, What's Out program for the Recycle CT Foundation. Today we're talking about waste reduction, or how to reduce your waste. I'm going to be sharing some of my own ideas of how I do it, but I encourage you to share your ideas so that I can learn from it as well as everybody else. If you also have ideas for a future topic, by all means, put that in the comments as well. So, I think, where should we start? Well, you probably are aware, or maybe you're not, there's data coming from the federal government as well as from Connecticut. And what they're finding is that we generate about 4 to 5 pounds of waste per person per day. That's a huge amount. And we can do better. We can do better by reducing the amount of trash that we generate that is sent to our local waste to energy facilities. Wouldn't that be amazing? While recycling is important, and so is in composting, waste reduction is something slightly different. Waste reduction is about trying not to buy something to begin with. Maybe you can borrow somebody else's item, whatever it is, or maybe you can repair the item that you have, or maybe you can rent it because you only need it one time. There are different ways of recognizing that you need to use something or need to do something, but do you need to buy something to do it? So when we think about waste reduction, it's not just about buying less, because sometimes we do need to buy things. And so it's also about being a better consumer. How can we do our purchasing in a smart way? Can we buy things that are reusable? Can we buy things that can be repaired? Can we buy things that at the end of using it, that item can be recycled? All of these are good ways or good practices for buying things. When I think about purchasing, a lot of people are concerned about single-use plastic, so we'll start at a really easy one. Sometimes you even see it as a hashtag, break free of single-use plastic, or maybe plastic water bottles. It's an easy place to start. So get a reusable water bottle. You find them all over the place. There are so many different options. I like this one when I was commuting to work and on the train because it fit in my backpack very nicely. But if I'm hiking or doing a short walk, I might take this one. I love the ones because you can put your finger in it. It's easy to carry. And that's, of course, if you don't have a backpack. So think about purchasing a reusable water bottle, because you'll be using it so many more times than a single-use item. Other things to think about is paper. So in my house, we use cloth napkins. We don't just save them for special occasions, we use them for everyday use. And when they get dirty, we put them in the laundry. And so we just keep washing them and reusing them. And this is a great way to reduce the amount of paper napkins you have. And, I used to be concerned, when the kids would use and they'd get, tons of ketchup and mustard and stuff. And it's like, well, you just keep washing them. And if you discover that they're so stained you don't want to use them as napkins anymore, you can use them in other ways. Cloth dish towels. Great for drying your hands, great for drying pots and pans or whatever else, but we use these in the kitchen as well instead of paper towels. Sometimes paper towels do more than just drying. Sometimes you need to clean. Well, we have other cloth cleaners, and we'll even use them on the floor. And if something's is stuck to the floor and we need to wipe it off, you just use it and you throw it in the laundry, and then you get another one, because over time we have been able to acquire more and more of these so that we always have some clean and some in the dryer. Something we're using more of, excuse me, it got dropped here, currently are these kind of reusable wipes. And we're using these more and more, almost like disinfectant cloths. But we reuse them. We put them in the dryer, we put them in the wash. We don't put them in the dryer. And we put them in soap and water, and so we wipe things down. We use soap and water to wipe down doorknobs sometimes. Sometimes we use them to wipe down incoming packages and incoming food from the grocery store. Depending on your level of risk and your concern, this is how we do it. So it's all reusables, which is great because I personally don't seem to have any access or be able to get any disinfectant wipes. But, you know, I'm fine and I'm feeling comfortable using soap and water. So what other things can we do? Other reusables, when I was packing my lunch, and now it's more of picnics, when we might go off on picnics and hiking, I use reusable snack bags. I think these are great. There are different kinds. Some are cloth. These are actually a form of plastic. They are made out of recycled bottles, soda bottles. So I particularly like this brand, but there are so many different kinds that you can use for wrapping food and snacks, which is great. We also have a reusable containers at home. These are great to reduce the amount of food you're wasting because you can put them, you make a meal, you have leftovers, they're perfect for leftovers because you can not only now put this in the microwave if you want to heat it up, or it can actually also go in the freezer. So if you make too much and you know you're only going to eat that whatever you made, casserole or soup or whatever, for so many days, pop some of it in the freezer, and then it'll be a surprise in a couple of weeks when you're like, oh, we already have some pre-made whatever. They come, of course, in different sizes, and while we didn't buy a lot of them all at once, we sort of added gradually more and more until we seem to have enough. Other things that you can use, of course, are jars. If you've ever attended one of my workshops, you know that I usually talk about I'm a big fan of Teddy peanut butter because it comes in glass jars. And as you can see, I actually save the jars because I reuse them in certain ways. I could use them for leftovers, and I could also use them for when I do bulk purchases. I do bulk purchases because it means that I don't have to have packaging coming into my home. And while in my area, we have a range of stores. We have the Elm City Market, we have Edge of the Woods, and even Time and Season, you might find that there are other stores in your area. I've never been to BD Provisions, but I hear that they're a zero waste store and everything is in bulk packaging. And so what happens is you might purchase it in a vegetable type bag, and I will reuse those. But ultimately, everything will then go into a jar. From what I understand, when you have a zero waste store, they actually want you to use ball jars because they can take the tear weight ahead of time, which means they know the weight of the jar, and that means they're only charging you for what goes inside. And that means no packaging whatsoever. I wish we had more of them in Connecticut. Now, if jars themselves are too expensive, because it's true, I did have to buy these ball jars, sometimes you can find really good deals at thrift shops or tag sales as we begin to reopen the state and we have more of these activities. And while when you find them, they may be looking kind of crusty and yucky because they've been sitting in somebody's garage. I actually like these old ones, mainly because they are really affordable and they still have good use in them. So what you might find is that this rubber thing is the seal that seals it. You might find this is old and crusty, but you know what? You can buy new seals. And all you have to do is put the seal in and then reuse it. I not only use this for leftovers, but I use this in the freezer as well. I do often make, when I make soup, I make double batches so that I can jar up some of it and put it in the freezer, and I'll use these containers. Other things that we might do. If you're a coffee or tea drinker, You can, if you have access to a place where you can buy it in bulk, you can buy your tea in bulk and then use a reusable basket of some sort to make your tea. If you're a coffee drinker, I personally use a press. There's no filter whatsoever. It's just coffee grounds, and I actually save my coffee grounds for my blueberries because they like that. I actually have, let's see, I have a bunch of blueberry bushes in my backyard, so I'm very lucky in that way. But you could compost them as well, or they do go into the trash, but then you also don't have to worry about the filter. I know that there are other options for trying to have reusable filters and this, etc. That's what I personally do. Cleaning supplies. I buy a pump for soap, but instead of constantly buying the pump, I actually buy a refillable container, and it's a lot larger, and I can refill my containers I think 3 or 4 times, and then once I'm done with this, I can actually put it in the recycling bin because it is acceptable in the program. And that way I don't have to keep buying one of these, and it saves me money as well. Other things that we might do, we might reuse things and repair things in a different way. So this is not for everybody, I admit, but a couple of years ago I discovered I had lots of socks that seemed to have holes in them. So I thought I should learn how to darn socks. You know, we talk about repair. Well, why am I not doing that for my socks? So you can't see the repair work on this one because I did a pretty good job of picking a colored thread that sort of matched the toe of it. I ended up buying a darning egg on Etsy, so it was already used, and it was nice. They threw in a darning needle and some thread in at the same time, and you can sort of see some of my handiwork there because I didn't use thread that disappeared, but you know what? Nobody knows it's in my shoe. And darning was quite interesting. How did I learn? I did a DIY video like everybody else, and it was fun. And today, going into my sock drawer to find you an example, I found a couple of pairs that I need to do, so now I've got a to-do list. Something else that I've repaired, this is a pair of hospital pants, and the button was falling apart, and the fabric right there was also falling apart. So I actually extended it a little bit so I could give it some strength for the button. And I'm not a sewer, I'm just do repair work. And where did this fabric come from? It actually came from an old fabric cloth napkin that had too much mustard on it. But not all of it was covered with mustard. And so I was able to get a piece of it that sort of matched because it was blue. And so I was very happy with that. Other things that you might do, I had a favorite shirt that I got from a friend when I was traveling, and I made it into a neck. You can put it on, and it's beautiful. I love it. So this is an old t-shirt that I've had probably for about 30 years. There's a group called the EcoWorks. They're a creative reuse center. They took old shirts and actually gave them new life. If you can't tell, this is I Heart Trash, and that's because they are a creative reuse. So it's like a thrift shop for teachers and artists. I can't wait for them to reopen soon, and they're quite fun. And so I'm sure that you do crafty items as well, trying to reuse things in different ways, which is fantastic. All of that can help either reduce or prolong the amount of waste that's going into our waste stream. So I think I've given you all the ideas that I have, except for I've talked before about reducing our junk mail. You can go on to dmachoice.org and learn more about how to reduce your junk mail. I've also talked in the past about reusable grocery bags. The fee for single-use plastic bags for retail operations has been extended until June 30th, but that doesn't mean that you have to use them. You can still bring your reusable bags to the grocery store, and I encourage you to do so. If you do bring your own bag, make sure you pack your own groceries. It's just a nice way of giving respect to those retail workers and reducing the risk for them. And if you, in the past, I have done a trash talk on how to clean your reusable grocery bags. So if you are using them, I encourage you to learn a little bit more about that. And while it's not truly about reducing what we consume, composting is a great way of reducing how much food scraps you put into your trash bin, and so you can learn how to compost. I thank you very much for joining me this week. I hope you learned something, and by all means, give me some of your ideas below. I look forward to seeing them. Bye.